So welcome everyone, good to see you. I have a wonderful guest today. I'm going to read out her bio so that I don't mess it up. So my guest today is Alyson Charles. Welcome, Alyson.
Thank you so much, Kristina. It's so beautiful to be here.
Thank you. So Alyson is actually, in your bio, I didn't say so, but I know that you call yourself rock star shaman. We can talk about that a little later, but the official bio is this. So Alyson is a revered shaman, author and spiritual teacher, lives in Austin, Texas with her husband, Luke Story, black cat Jellybean, and dog Cookie. She's devoted to being of service by living by the calls of inner wisdom, mysticism, energy medicine, and shamanic practices. She has mastered through her studies the spiritual teachers both of and beyond this world. Also, another thing which I would want to ask about, she leads global courses, events, and talks to reconnect people to their fullest power and divine confidence through sacred practices. Alyson has been a leading pioneer in bringing rituals and shamanism to places it's never been before. She's the host of Ceremony Circle podcast and the best-selling author of Animal Power. Alyson's Power Animal Shamanic Journey was named a top meditation to try by Oprah. Then she has been called leading shaman for expanding others into their full gifts and psyche. Oh, sorry. I think I messed it up. Full gifts and power, and also full-fledged guide into your psyche by Forbes, and the next big thing by Marie Claire magazine. Alyson was resident energy guru for the top wellness platform and has collaborated with a range of additional media outlets and brands, including the New York Times, HBO, National Geographic, Well Plus Good, Mind Body Green, Elle, and Self. So obviously you have been actually on very many big, huge platforms. And I think I'll start in a very typical me way. I've met shamans, but not in the city. Of course, I've met shamans in the city, but I generally haven't interacted. So I wonder, what is the place of shamanism in the contemporary world in terms of it being modern, it being actually kind of detached from nature, from earth. We kind of live on this planet, but not really on this planet, on a parallel universe. So how do you survive outside the nature?
Yes, that's actually a beautiful place to start, and that's one of the more intriguing layers and elements that I came to discover about my particular shamanic walk and my particular specific earth mission with the shamanic calling was really learning throughout my many lifetimes and many years, this lifetime of being on this path, that one of the main reasons I'm here doing this work is to be a steward and a reminder of, because we all have these shamanic ancient wisdoms and truths and codes and blueprints inside all of us. It's the planet's most ancient healing art. And so me being able to live in these cities, I lived in New York City for about 15 or 16 years. I was bi-coastal between New York City and LA for many years. I lived in LA as well. Now I'm in Austin. And so the fact that I'm able to bring these ancient sacred practices and rituals to people that live in a city and help them remember how to connect with their soul, and how even when living in the concrete jungle that you can connect and honor Great Mother Earth, and you can absolutely attune into the unseen realms and Great Spirit. That's one of the main things I'm here to help people remember. And it's been really incredible. I think a saving grace for me has been where the name comes from. And I'm glad that you kind of opened with that, because it was a medicine name given to me not long after I had my divine intervention and spiritual awakening. And the name Rock Star Shaman really represents how my shamanic medicine and path works. And that's connecting directly into rock, Great Mother Earth, Gaia, and directly up into source, star, consciousness, Great Spirit, and holding that vertical line of tuning into my heart and doing everything I can to be devoted to uniting with my own soul while being anchored into that vertical line of Great Spirit and Great Mother Earth has truly, especially in the last couple of years, been my saving grace. And so I teach a lot of practices that allow people, if it resonates and if they feel called to, of course, to learn how to connect into those two places. And the last thing that I'll share around this particular question is having an altar space, that sacred space within your own home, especially if you live in a city where you can bring meaningful objects, sacred objects from nature into your home. And I start every single day there uniting with sacred grand fire, even if that just means lighting a candle or, turning on my fireplace. I have really meaningful feathers, crystals, of course, anointing oils, my drums and rattles. All of these things made out of elements of nature are incredibly powerful to have, especially if you're not, living in the middle of a forest or, the desert or wherever.
Alyson, I have a question, a clarifying question to what you just were saying. As I was listening to you, I was wondering, are you an ambassador of the other world, or let's say the nature and the earth to the human civilization, which is so detached, or are you more out there to help humans not to get lost, not to lose that connection? What I'm trying to say is that, which side are you on, the modern world or the ancient wisdom?
I'm a bridge between both. It's not an either or, and shamanism, we really embrace and lean into the allness, the totality of all that is. And shamanism holds within it the most ancient truths of the planet Earth's existence and all of the ancient wisdom truths of all the universes. So it's definitely not an either or. It's a practice of balance. It's a practice of learning to honor my unique mission this lifetime. My shamanism does operate a little bit in a unique way, and I'm very aware of that. But that's the assignment that I signed up for, and those are the instructions that I'm given by divine. And that's really where my devotion lives, is as long as I'm right with God, Goddess, and Great Mother Earth, and I'm living by the downloads and instructions that they're giving me, then I know that I'm good. And those are the instructions that I've been given, is to bring these most ancient practices into the modern world, especially over here in the US. I mean, we've gotten so far detached from, remembering when we walk outside, if there's an animal presenting on a regular basis, the percentage of people that really are attuned and awakened to have that conscious awareness of like, oh, wow, I've seen a hawk, 4 times in the last 2 days. This animal's clearly trying to commune with me and trying to come in as my brother and sister, and it clearly has a message for me. I mean, it's hard to guess what the percentage would be who could tap into that awareness, but it's very low. And yet at the same time, the beautiful thing that I've seen happening, I've been doing this work for over a decade, this particular lifetime. And within that 10 plus years, the amount of people who are allowing their soul to communicate with them and to guide them over into spiritual practices, the spiritual path, the shamanic path. I mean, it's growing exponentially every single day. So I am a vessel and an instrument of the sacred and of the divine. And I'm very much a bridge here, uniting ancient consciousness and shamanic practices over into especially the worlds of media and the entertainment industry, because that's where my background is. So my journey is one of those stories where, in hindsight, the dots that connect, that have woven to bring me to where I am today, make a lot of sense.
So I'm not very familiar, of course, with history of shamanism, because it was not that prominent through the history books and history textbooks. But I understand that in many cultures, to become a shaman, you are either born into a shaman family, or there is some kind of ritual of selection or choice. How did you how did you realize you were the vessel, you were the chosen? Because it's not like any other profession. Oh, I'd like to be a doctor, or I'd like to be a, where you choose your profession based on your interests. How did your selection happen?
Yeah, you're asking such beautiful questions. Thank you for that. Yes, you are completely correct. The call to be a shaman is exactly that. It's a soul level calling that is encoded within your being. And so I'm very aware that my particular earth walk and the calling to be a shaman is a soul assignment that I signed up for before I even incarnated. And the interesting thing, though, is when I incarnated at a very young age, I was met with, at a very young age, about 2.5, not even 3 years old, this choice point in my life where I could allow my seership, my seer gifts, my shamanic and spiritual abilities to stay completely on and activated, or keep my relationship with my dad. It's a long story, and I share about it in other podcasts. But the briefest cliff notes is that I couldn't have both. I could see so much, and I love my dad, and he's a wonderful person, but like a lot of people, he was operating from a lot of unhealed trauma and wounding. And so when you're operating from that place, it's inevitable that there's going to be distortion and dysfunction at times. And so I could either choose to keep all of those seership gifts on, and it would create a rift between my dad and I, or shut those gifts down and continue to keep my relationship with my father, who's also my distance running coach. And I chose at 2.5, 3 years old to really bring my gifts down to a very low percentage to maintain the relationship with my dad. So it wasn't until, many years ago when I had my divine intervention and spiritual awakening moment, which for me happened simultaneously. My story of remembering and reconnecting back to the truth of who I am is one where it happened in a split second. My clairaudient gift got turned on, and I was instructed to see some proof of a previous relationship that I had. And in me facing those greatest fears, and in me finally, after almost 20 years, facing the truth of the dynamics of that relationship, that was my first shamanic cave initiatory moment, where I love to reference that Joseph Campbell quote, "The cave you fear to enter holds the treasure you seek." And entering into that cave and facing those greatest fears of betrayal was the medicine that my soul needed to finally have the veil lifted, to have my egoic shell obliterated. And it was in that process that I allowed myself to finally surrender, because I was really pushing against my spiritual abilities, and allowing myself to stay entrenched in a very toxic, abusive relationship that was filled with codependence. And so finally, when this moment and this day happened, it was so anguishing that I finally surrendered to Great Spirit, my soul, and Great Mother Earth. And I always find it important to say that, because that was the biggest decision point of my life. The intervention came in through my guides and my support system of the unseen realms. But what I chose to do was to finally get out of my own way. And that was the decision that allowed me to get in devotion to healing myself. Because when the veil lifted, I saw I was not at all the person who I thought I was. I had a lot of healing work to do. And there were a lot of rude awakenings that continued. Some do, honestly, to this day. But it was through my devotion to simply wanting to heal myself and whole myself, and answering the instructions that would come in, guiding me to this shaman, this healer, this healing practice, whatever it was that came in, I trusted and I heeded the call. And it was through that finally my soul got to a place of readiness to have the calling of shamanism that had always lived inside of me. It finally had room to open up, and it had a safe place to take hold. And so it began to inform me. So you're correct. It is not a path or a job or a career that I set out to embark upon. I just wanted to heal myself. And in doing so, the true me and the true calling in me started to communicate and guide me from within.
Sorry, I hope I'm not going to cross any boundaries, but I was wondering if your dad is still alive, or if he was alive at that moment, how did that impact your relationship, or does it not matter anymore?
Yeah, you know, he is still alive, and I'm going to go visit him and my family where I come from in a few weeks, and I love him dearly. And you know, it it really created, it actually brings up a pretty big wave of emotion in me because yeah, it was a tough point, you know, to, as such a young girl, feel like I had to squelch the true me and the true power and gifts that are so me in order to keep that relationship alive. And what happened, and I wouldn't change a thing of it, you know, it's all a part of my journey, and I know it's all divinely perfect. But in keeping that relationship alive, what happened was, because he was not just my dad, he was also my distance running coach. And I was an athlete at the highest level. I was a 2-time national champion. And so I say that because what began to occur was the trauma and wounding place that he was operating from. It allowed a dysfunction line, a dysfunctional cord to get enmeshed between us, where I, as a young girl, was allowing my physical vessel to be dishonored and at times a bit abused to fix and feed the need of another. So it's not that he was hitting me or anything, but he was my coach. And I was 2.5, 3 years old when I ran in my first running road race. And that career continued through college, being a scholarship athlete at Alabama. And so this is an important thread, because by me learning on a cellular level to allow another person to instruct and command what my physical vessel and what my physical body should do, when I got older and entered into college and got into my first really serious relationship, that dysfunctional line continued and transferred into me allowing my physical vessel to be really abused and dishonored by my ex, who, once I had my awakening, I came to understand he suffered from a lot of addiction issues, and sex addiction being one of them. So you see, it morphed and it changed course, but that same piece of me allowing a man, someone outside of myself, to dishonor my body, and me allowing that, that's a huge piece I had to take responsibility for when I woke up, was like, wow, for over 16 years I was in a relationship with my ex-fiance where pretty much every time we were intimate, it was dishonoring. So that's a huge piece that you have to acknowledge and look at. And so that was a huge piece in my healing path, of really learning, what does it mean to have self-respect and self-honor and self-love, in all capacities, mind, body, spirit, soul. So yeah, that line and that relationship, and the energetics created there took on huge, meaningful points in my life for many, many years after.
Alyson, I'm sorry for going into a painful area. I didn't intend that, and
It's all beautiful. It's okay.
but yes, thank you for being so honest and open. If you don't mind, I'll ask one more personal question, and then we'll go into your work a little bit more deeper. So, when you had your divine intervention and spiritual awakening, were you already then like aware, or did you know about shamanism, and was it part of the journey, or was it just your regular human life, the athlete and everything, something happened and then you started searching and that's how you found shamanism? Which way did it happen?
Definitely. Yeah, you know, even though I made that decision at a very young age to pretty much turn off my gifts, I let them stay on just enough. And I know it was my soul trying to, you know, keep the true me alive. So Even as a young girl, the books that I gravitated to, the teachings, the learnings, it was always metaphysics, spirituality, self-help. Even as a young girl, I wasn't reading, fiction, or as I grew up, I wasn't reading romance novels. It was always the healing power of colors and how to read palms and numerology. And actually, even when I was a hip hop radio show, morning show host, I was the host that was always booking the psychics to come into the studio, and I was doing dream analysis for our listeners that would call in. And so it was like I kept that piece alive just enough so that it didn't totally go away. And then, yeah, after I had my awakening, everything really obviously came in much stronger. And my aunt, who is actually a shaman, she was one of the first shamans I was instructed and guided to go to for healing. And it was actually in my soul retrieval and healing session with my aunt that my core power animal, the black jaguar, and some supporter animals came in to help me at that time in my life. So it was there, but at a mild capacity. And once I had my divine intervention, it was full on, and it's been full on ever since.
Wow, it's interesting. I was just in Spain, and I did saw a black jaguar recently, something I had never seen before. So it was literally last week. But we'll talk about animals later. I have one more question before we go into animals, because I wanted to actually dedicate most of this time to animals, but I've been so fascinated by your story that I think I've asked you more questions about you. But one more question. So if we look at at human history, obviously shamanism was part of our early, I wouldn't call it religion per se, but faith, right? Or the something, some connection to beyond this physical world. And then, of course, religion came over and took over and removed most of shamanism from the civilized world, we can say. So it stayed in some places. Can you maybe you know that, I do not know, but why is it reviving? Why is it coming back? And in our civilized world, if I can say so, the world which is in the cities, which is detached from nature, why is it reviving? And if it is it the same kind of shamanism that was there with the early humans, or do you think it's something different now?
Oh my goodness, that is such a big question. And it's great. So let me just kind of tune into the information that's wanting to present today for that question. So, okay, yeah, there's a lot of layers to this. So I think I'll start with, one of the reasons these most ancient spiritual truths, it's so intriguing because, back in the day when the first humans were, in Africa, and they just organically, intuitively knew to pay homage and respect and give offerings to Great Mother Earth, the planet that we inhabited, and just intuitively knew to commune with our brothers and sisters in the plant world and the animal world, and to, send, prayers through sacred smoke up to Great Spirit. All of these practices were just simply life. It was just the truest way of being. So these, what we would consider to be rituals or practices or ceremonies back then, it was so far beyond that. It just was life. And yeah, so, as shamanism began to, and of course back then too, there wasn't a name for it, because they were just living and being. It wasn't until, these ways of life began to migrate into all the different continents and countries that eventually the name shaman came from Siberia, and the name translates to one who sees in the dark. And so that's when, shamanism and the title shaman came into be. But what's so beautiful about shamanism is because it's held on every continent, and it's a truly a planetary practice. There's the way of shamanism that myself and many of my colleagues practice, where it's just directly anchored into Great Mother Earth and Great Spirit. But then there are also, lineage and tradition based ways that are attached to particular ways of life and locations on the earth. And I've certainly sat and studied with and been in many sacred ceremonies with teachers that take sacred oaths to have their shamanism adhere to a very particular way. And so even though my shamanism works directly with the planet and Great Spirit, I still think it's really, really important to pay respect and to really honor the indigenous ways and the teachers, because they have been wisdom keepers for obviously many, many thousands of years. So I think it's important to cover some of those foundational pieces, and why I think our souls are leaning in and wanting to remember and reconnect back to these, these truest, most ancient ways is just, for sustainability, honestly, of the planet and of humanity. And it's no coincidence that during this time of this massive shadow extraction and reveal and awakening that's been going on the planet, especially in the last couple of years, when you look back and see that shamanism is making this resurgence, and it's really been coming back in, especially in the last, 5, 6, 7, 8 years, it's all by, divine design, so that there could be a good number of people that, as this massive awakening time, and this thunder and lightning that just happened right when I said that out my window, during this massive awakening time, there needed to be enough people that could hold a particular a space for, these unprecedented times, and for the others then that are following suit and wanting to reconnect to help be way showers for them. So that's another piece of the dynamics that are happening. I feel like there was one other layer to your question that I might have missed. But yeah, it's a lot to some of these explanations.
Well, I got the answers. Thank you guys, those who are leaving your questions. I can see the questions, and I'll let you ask your questions in a jiffy, I hope. But I want to come back to the topic that we had announced and that interests me a lot, the spirit animals. Can you explain a little bit what is it about? And yeah, maybe we should start from that. What is that spirit animal things about? Because we live in the world, most of us live in the world, where we only see pigeons and mice at best. We don't see many animals. What is it about? How do we know who is my spirit animal? How do we use them? Because you talk about them in the context of contemporary life. So yes, I think I've asked 5 questions in one.
No, it's all great. So my work, and I refer to them as power animals, and just like archangels, ascended masters, illuminated beings, all of these incredible spiritual allies that we have that come to us to help nourish us, support us, empower us. The power animal world is no different. But the one thing that makes the power animal allies a bit unique is the fact that they are spiritual brothers and sisters and teachers that appear to us in both the waking world and the unseen world. And what's fascinating about that is, and I love that there's such teachers in this capacity, because we can get accustomed to going outside and seeing birds fly overhead, or a lizard scampering across the concrete, or a cockroach, running up the wall. We can get a bit desensitized to their sacredness and their reverence and the teachings that they have for us. And so, the power animal world, every single animal holds within it different medicine teachings and wisdom attributes And so once you start to learn, and that's honestly why, this is my book, Animal Power: 100 Animals to Energize Your Life and Awaken Your Soul. One of the main reasons this book came to be is because it's a reference guidebook that features 100 animals and explains what they represent, so that you can understand if an animal is presenting to you in your waking life, or during meditation, or during a shamanic journey, or while you sleep, because that's another portal where animals come in a lot, is during dream time. You can go to this book and understand, why is this animal coming in to help your life? So a quick example: when I had my awakening and divine intervention, I had 4 animals that came in to really help me during that time. The black jaguar came in as my core power animal. So that's the animal that's with you your entire life, every moment of every day. And the black jaguar really helped me to reclaim my spiritual power and gifts, and to not be afraid of shadow work, and going into those dark areas of life and within myself. And then the deer came in for heart medicine, and it taught me to not shut my heart down, because when you go through extreme betrayal and heartbreak, it's a natural tendency to just want to shut down, and to not be vulnerable again to ever potentially feeling that level of anguish. But the deer just urged me. She still works with me to this day, and actually played a huge part in me getting with my now husband, Luke's story. And then the bear came in as this like grounding, stabilizing force. And it taught me how to keep surrendering, and how to continue to let go, and to trust more of the divine masculine energy, and being held in support. And then the frog came in to help me clear out the emotional waters in the landscape. It taught me to take a leap of faith forward, because frogs do not ever leap backward. They only move forward. So I would sit in mini healing baths and call the frog in, and just clear out a lot of suppressed emotions and wounds and trauma energies that I had just not been facing until I had my awakening moment. So those are just some quick examples of what animals mean, and when they present, how they're really trying to help you. So depending upon what you're going through in life, there could be an animal coming in to help you for a day, for 4 months, or for, the deer, for example, it's been with me for about a decade. And then the core one is with you your whole life.
Mm. And so they present themselves to you in very different way. How do you learn to notice them?
It's through, I have found, and I also teach, that the power animal world really does love a good invitation in. And so just like my example with my surrender moment, I said a specific surrender statement. And I used to have an online course that had 9 different shamanic journeys. And one of them, taught the art of surrender, and gave this statement. So if working with the power animal world is really resonating, and something that you want to open yourself and your soul and your evolutionary path open to, invite them in. Even if it's just in a brief 1-2 minute meditation, close your eyes, really anchor your tailbone into Gaia, into Great Mother Earth, connect with your heart, breathe into your heart, feel that connection line up into Source, Great Spirit. And then it can be so simple as saying, divine power animal allies, sacred power animal world, thank you for presenting to me. I can feel a resonance. I am opening up my energetic space and field to allow myself to commune with you more deeply. I invite in your teachings, your medicine, your love. And if there's a particular power animal who wishes to come to me now to reveal to me as a friend, a teacher, an ally, I'm open to receiving you now. And just staying with your eyes closed, and just seeing. Some people's spiritual gifts operate more through clairaudience. They can hear a whisper or a word. So they might hear tiger. Or for me, all of my gifts are pretty on board and online. And so I see a lot of stuff. I'm very clairvoyant and visual. So typically, the animal for me will present in my mind's eye, or I will feel it. And I do actually, this is not just like a plug or a ploy to get people to buy the book, but it is the most supportive way that I recommend people because it is such a sacred reunion and relationship, if you're wanting to go on a trusted guided shamanic journey to call forward the animal, on my website, alysoncharles.com/animal power, when you pre-order the book, you get a free video guided shamanic journey that I facilitate sent to you. And so with my drum and rattle, I take you into the other realms, and we call the power animal who most wants to empower your life right now forward for you to ask it questions, receive the medicine that it wants to give to you. So that's the way I most recommend people do it.
Thank you so much. By the way, Bianca, I'm going to ask you now to bring someone in to ask a question. I will want to ask about some animals because it's so fascinating. Oh, yes. Now we have Val. Val, if you're ready to ask a question, you can, yes, the camera is on, the sound is on. I'm going to mute myself and let you ask the question of my wonderful guest, Alyson. Val,
Okay.
you're on.
Can you hear me okay?
Hi, Val.
Hi, Alyson. Alyson, I absolutely love that we're having this this offering. And I have a couple of questions, if I can remember them. One was simply, let me just say, what you've described just resonates a million times with the journey I've been on. I felt like a kick in a gut, and my gut was my calling that started last year. And I just, like you said, just started answering it, just started getting the downloads, started trusting, not understanding at all what was happening to me. It's been an amazing year. That's been 10 months of it. And so here I am recognizing that I believe I'm on a shamanic path. All signs are indicating it. And my question is, though, when you hear about spiritual awakenings, how would you describe the difference, recognizing the difference between a shamanic calling and a spiritual awakening? That's one question.
Yeah, let's start there. That's really, I'm so glad you brought that medicine in. So thank you so much. And I just want to take a second to honor you for leaning into your true divine path and answering the calls. I truly, truly, truly understand the initiations and the fires and the rites of passage and all that comes with it. So I feel that very deeply for you. Yeah, it's really intriguing. With shamanism, it's such a specific, unique texture and essence. And I know that that is in some ways the most vague way of explaining it, but it's so hard to try to put into words like what a shamanic calling is. It's one that is just so specific and unique. And when you're encoded with it, I mean, think about it like this. If you're sitting up there in the ethers, with all of your, ascended master family, starseed family, and you're crafting up your, soul assignments and all that you're supposed to learn and experience this lifetime. And if you're taking on, to become embodied and to reconnect with yourself as a shaman this lifetime, that is a very, very strong, specific encoding and blueprint that you are receiving and allowing to drop into you. So when you get to a place on your earth walk where that thing that's always been encoded and blueprinted inside of you is like, ping, the light has been turned on. It starts to maneuver through your light body and your light grid. It begins to inform you all of those, ancient lifetimes when you were a sage, a mystic, a witch, a high priestess, a shaman before. All of that information and all of your chakras starts to open up and get dislodged, and all of the limiting stuff is starting to get cleared out, and the true stuff is starting to get more illuminated. It's a specific calling that is just truly undeniable, and you just know. And the other thing that I'll say is, this is such an important teaching too. So again, I'm glad you brought this medicine in. It's two very different things. When someone is feeling called to lean into a shamanic ceremony or a shamanic practice for, a certain type of healing, or to learn or honor a certain shamanic ancient tradition, when you feel that soul tugging and that soul resonance to experience shamanic practices when you're called, that is very different than a total calling to become reunited with and get completely in integrity with and embodied with a calling to be a shaman. Do you know what I'm trying to say? There's two different paths. One is like, I am feeling called to go to Sri Lanka, and I resonate with this shamanic healer that lives there, and I know that she has something for me. And once you have that ceremony with that teacher, you continue to go about your life, and that was that. But the path that you have been encoded with and have the true soul calling to become a shaman is a whole other different path.
So are you saying the difference between sort of being called to a shaman for healing on your own versus being called to be a shaman?
Yes, two very different pathways.
Okay.
And
okay.
you know,
Okay.
like you already know. I can look at you and you know what it is for you. And
Yeah,
I'm not saying there might not be questions that don't come up, because it is important to do integrity checks continuously, you know, throughout your journey. I'm not saying that there won't be resistance or questions, but at that deepest part of you, you know which it is for you.
Yeah, and it takes a long time, I think, to fully step into it, which is why I think I'm at the, it's only been 10 months. So I think I'm still so early on it that I have so much more to learn.
Yeah. And I mean, I just came out of the, perhaps it's very comparable to, if not even more intense, these past 3 weeks of October. It was initiatory wise as intense, if not more intense, than my initial awakening and divine intervention time. And so I'm continuously learning. And that's honestly my favorite part about the shamanic path, is we are forever students. It's the infinite evolutionary path. And that to me is the most important thing to remember. It keeps you humble. It keeps you a forever student of life. It keeps the oneness intact. And so trust me, I'm learning every single day.
Good. I love that, because I love that about it. One more question, if I may, before I go on to others. As I've learned a bit about this, and I did do some course with a traditional shaman, I'd say. And I'm starting to notice that there's a difference between the traditional shamans who are very closeted about, oh, shamans don't ever declare that they're shamans. Shamans keep it private. Shamans, we never talk about it.
Yes.
And yet at the same time, to be a shaman, there's a rebel in you, right? You've got to be able to stand, you know, very toe to toe with some very difficult things.
Yes.
And in that sense, there's a part of me going, but exactly as you described, and I feel it, I feel the calling in the world for a rising of spirituality and a difference, and to honor our legacy of where we've come from. So there's a part of me going, is there an opportunity, or what's your take on bringing shamanism, as I'll call it, out of the closet a little bit more to educate the public?
Gosh, you and Kristina are just rocking the questions. Wow, I love it so much. So it's my shortest, most concise answer for that is, what is paramount and what is most important is keeping your alignment with divine. And so every single shaman on this planet is completely different. And we are carrying with us different medicines and transmissions and experiences and embodiments that are going to speak to and resonate with some, and others not. And it's all perfect, and it's all supposed to be that way. So I do think that it's important that we remember that in a lot of traditions, in the most ancient sense, yes, there was no need for them to use the title. In fact, I mean, there are a lot of shamans still in this day, and their tradition, their word for shaman is not shaman. They call it something else. And yeah, I mean, when you think of hundreds or thousands and thousands of years ago, it was just known that, you know, this woman in the village, like, she was the medicine woman and she was the shaman. She didn't need to call herself that. But we are now in this day and age, and it has been my assignment. I live in devotion to the divine calls and instruction. And it has not been easy by any means, but I have been given the instruction to hold the space of a woman shaman. And myself and some of my dear friends and colleagues, they have also been given the instruction in the assignment to use the title of shaman. I have just as many friends and colleagues who have not been given that assignment, and some are totally covert, and they are, embodied shamans, but they never use the title. They never claim to really do the work, but everywhere they go, that is their operation. They are embodying the medicine, but they don't use the title. And then I have other colleagues who use titles like shamanic healer or shamanic practitioner or shamanic sound medicine person, whatever the case might be. But it's like you have to go through so many initiations and fires and shadow work and facing everything within yourself. That's the path of being a shaman. You have to arrive to a place of not only trusting yourself, but trusting in your ability to hear the instruction and trusting how your specific shamanic path is to work this lifetime. And my oath and my devotion is in honoring that. And I know if I'm here, then I'm good. The last little thing that I'll say is how I know that me using the title shaman is not of ego is I personally don't care if I use it at all. In fact, I have tried for many years. I still recently just checked in with Source. Am I still supposed to be using this title? Because trust me, in a lot of respects, it would be easier if I did not. I mean, I've shifted, I've put Rockstar Shaman as an AKA name. I've done everything under the sun to try to make sure. And I personally, when I walk into a room or go somewhere, I genuinely do not care if anyone in the room knows who I am, knows that I'm a shaman, doesn't know that I'm a shaman. It doesn't matter. But I am assigned and I'm instructed to use the title. And that's the place that I live from. So I hope that helps.
It does. And the only thing I can say that came to me is because there's not a certification or proof to be a shaman, that it could be very dangerous to start throwing the word around too much, because then you'll have a lot of false practitioners who could do a lot of damage, right?
Absolutely. And that's why, I definitely err on the side of doing beyond exhaustive integrity checks, but I would rather go on that side than the other. And, the other thing is also when you're someone who's truly walking this path with integrity, with honor, with reverence, with authenticity, it's felt. So even if someone doesn't necessarily like the way my shamanic path is functioning or doesn't necessarily like the taste of my shamanic medicine, I believe that the purity of my path and my heart is still felt. And so, yeah, it's not easy, but it's like, I'm not here to be liked by everyone. I'm here to answer the call that God and Goddess tells me to do. I'm here to walk and transmit what I'm told to transmit. So, and I trust myself,
Thank you for taking my questions.
Yeah, thank you.
Val, thank you so much for coming on with us. And I wish I could take this topic a little deeper, because I actually got so excited about about some part of it, and I wanted to go to talk a little bit more about that. But we don't have a lot of time, unfortunately, because we have new show coming on in 10 minutes. So we'll have to be rounding up. I'm sorry, guys, that I couldn't bring more of you on. I was just too engrossed in the conversation, so it happened. Alyson, I want to ask just a slightly lighter question, actually, for the end of the show. I understand that there's a process to get those power animals to come and guide you, but I guess when you're drawn to some animal, you're fascinated, or you kind of find that animal interesting. That's also in a way a sign.
Yes.
So for me, it has been a wolf over time. Could you say a few words about that? I just want to understand.
Yes, beautiful. I love. And the other really cool and unique thing about my Animal Power book is that I was guided to invite in 25 different spiritual teachers, shamans from around the world to share about an animal that they have worked with and deeply revere and that has changed their life. And my dear friend Florencia Friedman, who is a ceremonial cacao guide and educator, she actually shared her personal story about the wolf. So I'll give you first the transmission of the art of the wolf.
Oh.
And, you know, like I shared, every single animal in the book has, you know, a full page. This is the rhinoceros, has a full page of art done. And so hiring the artist was really important so that each animal felt in true embodiment of their teaching. So I'm going to share with you some of the main keyword attributes that wolf represents from my book: teacher, psychic insight, the full moon, medicine carrier, ritual, independence, divine confidence, and new guidance. And then on the other side, opposite of the art, I have power practices for each animal. And that's a ritual meditation ceremony you can do to deepen your relationship with each animal. And there are also energy medicine messages. So I'm going to tune in here. Each animal has around 5 to 10 different messages. So I'm just going to intuit which one wants to be shared with you. Ooh, okay. I awaken a renewed sense of life and ritual and share great medicine for your spirit and soul. If you do not have a regular spiritual practice, I remind you of the importance of devotion and ritual. And then I find there's one more I feel like for you. Okay. There's, I know you have the electronic copy, so I really urge you, if it resonates, to do the power practice, because these medicines are really activating up in connection to you. But this other one is: when was the last time you spent alone to unlock your consciousness? The healer or teacher within you always needs ample time to dive deep and reveal truths. So, you know, what I'm picking up on is that it feels like your own soul, your psyche, your consciousness is really at an up-leveling, upgrading time. You know, your spiritual gifts, the medicine carrier in you, the medicine woman in you is really ready to unlock and expand in a bigger, greater, more expansive way. And so, you know, I know the new moon is tomorrow. So working with the moon, whether it's new or full, is important wolf medicine. So I would advise perhaps doing this power practice for a wolf on the new moon day. And then on full moon day, I just did it on this past one: get outside, howl, work with the fire. The fire really aligns with the medicine of the wolf, really tuning into the flame. Sacred Grandfire, in my opinion, is the original shaman of all the universes. So connecting to the flame and asking Sacred Grandfire questions, allowing the medicine of the fire and the flame to enter into you and to open up these gifts that is time to open up inside of you. That's what I'm picking up for you.
Thank you so much. Wow, I was lucky. Alyson, unfortunately, we have to finish. So I'm going to ask my traditional questions. Those who are guests right now, can you please leave your love for my wonderful guest in the chat? Those who are going to be watching it in recording, you can leave a heart under the video. And maybe you have some parting words for us. I know we don't have a lot of time, but something you'd like to leave our listeners with.
The thing that just flashed in right when you asked is sacred song, you know, drumming, rattling, just now more than ever, because there is just such huge potent medicine. You cannot escape it. Doesn't matter who you are, where you live, how deep on the spiritual path you are or aren't, you cannot escape the potency that is happening on the planet and within the unseen realms right now. And so leaning into singing songs, to creating an altar space, to, before you get out of bed, putting your hands on your heart. And really, I start every day asking my heart, how are you feeling today? What do you need today? I ask my heart, I ask my body, I ask my mind, my spirit and soul. And it only takes a couple of minutes, but really, really tuning in and trusting the guidance of your own soul and the wisdom that lives within. And having an altar space really helps to create that space for you to awaken even more, and singing. And you don't have to be a shaman to have a drum or a rattle or sacred tools that help you remember who you are and why you incarnated. But imagine if everyone felt in resonance to get into alignment and devotion with their true soul's calling, the world would be functioning in a very different way, and it would hold within it much greater levels of love and compassion and oneness and unity. So if any of that speaks to you, just allow a song to move through you. You don't even have to quote unquote know a song. Just sit, close your eyes, hum, and allow words, sounds to just emanate from you. That is true medicine. And that's medicine not only for you, but for the entire planet and all living beings.
Thank you so much. It was absolutely wonderful. I do hope that maybe we could bring you back to do some ceremony with, if you do ceremonies online.
Yeah.
It was really a great pleasure. Thank you very much. I wouldn't just throw this lightly for giving such real, honest talk. And for being so beautiful.
Thank you
everyone
so much
for joining us. And I know we have to rush to finish up this room. So Bianca, thank you for supporting us behind the scenes. And see you all. Bye.
Thank you.